Reading for over an hour from a 35-page statement, Manning said, quote, "I believe that if the general public, especially the American public, had access to the information, this could spark a domestic debate on the role of the military and our foreign policy in general." He added, quote, "I believed that these cables would not damage the United States. However, I believed these cables would be embarrassing."
It was one of the more moving days I've ever spent in a courtroom. You've heard from Bradley Manning once before, which was when he testified about the torture that happened to him. I was crying through that. This was amazing. I mean, he actually didn't stand. He sat at the defense table, and he read his 35-page statement, which sadly we do not have a copy of, even though there's nothing classified about that statement. And hopefully we'll get it, because that is something that should be taught in every school in America. He went through each of the releases that he took responsibility for, that you mentioned on the air, and he told us why he did it. And in each case, you saw a 22-year-old, a 23-year-old, a person of incredible conscience saying, what I'm seeing the United States do is utterly wrong. It's immoral, the way they're killing people in Iraq, targeting people for death rather than working with the population. This is wrong. And in each of these statements, tells you about how he was doing it politically.
Remind us of how he did this. He was actually serving in Iraq as a soldier.
Yes, he was a soldier. He was and he goes through that in the statement. He's an intelligence analyst, and one of the things he worked with what were called significant activities reports, which are the daily logs of what's happening in Iraq, and attached to it, of course, in Afghanistan. And as he read those, I think he became appalled by what he saw. The killings, the targeted assassinations, the fact that people didn't want the United States there, the fact that we weren't really helping the country or helping individuals. And he said he wanted to lift the fog of war from it, and he got in touch with various organizations, including WikiLeaks, and that he talks about. He talks about that.
Explain, he actually said he didn't go to WikiLeaks first.
No, that's correct. He had these documents on a disk that he eventually took out of the special secure room. He actually came to the United States with it. That's the Iraq war logs and the Afghan war logs. And he tried to get it to the New York Times and the Washington Post. He calls up the Washington Post, has a 5-minute discussion with somebody there.
Does he know who?
He doesn't recall who, at least he didn't say it. He doesn't take it, he said they don't take him seriously, and then he feels he can't get that. He calls the public editor at the New York Times, leaves a message on the answering machine of the public editor, and doesn't get a call back. He's then thinking about, how am I going to get this critical information out, because I think what the U.S. is doing should be debated in the United States. We're killing people without cause, essentially. And then he has already known about WikiLeaks, because he was aware of WikiLeaks in part because of their release of the text messages, or the SMSs, from the World Trade Center phones that were there on 9/11. So he's aware of WikiLeaks. He's in some communication by chat or otherwise with WikiLeaks, and they point him to a site where he can upload the documents. One interesting point on that is what he mentions about WikiLeaks. Some papers have reported that he said he believes it was in communication with Julian Assange. He actually says it could have been Julian Assange. It could have been someone he calls Daniel Schmidt, which is probably Daniel Dumscheitberg from Germany. And he says, and it also says it could have been someone high up in WikiLeaks. He really doesn't know. And he says, whatever I did in this case, I did because I wanted to do it. I was not pressured to do it. I made the decision to do it. So he tries these other media, and ultimately he sees that WikiLeaks has a way of uploading documents that's anonymous, that he doesn't know who's on the other end, and they don't know who's on his end.